go back to Florida before 2018. Every person who was politically astute would contend that Florida was turning purple. Every pundit, every political pontificator, every politico was out there talking about how Florida demographically had changed, had evolved from a deep red state to a light red state to now a state that was very much in play for Democrats. Now, two things about this, right? Just sort of big picture. The Republican response to this under, well, let's say under the leadership of Jeb Bush was to cater to Democrats and try to soften conservatism. And it was a losing strategy. This is a strategy employed by a series of governors in California over the years. I witnessed this as a kid growing up, and culminated, of course, in Arnold Schwarzenegger's very disappointing governorship, where he capitulated to the Democrats and gave up the state for good. But I'm digressing here. I just want to get back to that idea of what Florida was before DeSantis won. DeSantis won. He won in 2018, and I wrote this down here so I would have it correctly, presented correctly to you. It was 0.4% of the vote. Out of a total of approximately 8 million votes, DeSantis eked out a victory by 32,000 votes. Now, in 22, when he ran for re-election, it was a landslide. He won by 19%, which is a margin of approximately 1.5 million votes. So, I mean, was Andrew Gillum that popular? Was Charlie Crist in 22 that unpopular? I mean, I happen to think, I reasonably believe that Gillum, this is of course before we found him passed out in a hotel room with a hooker, and evidence of drug use, was a fairly popular politician in Florida, and Charlie Crist as well, arguably longtime senator there, former Republican, and someone who, quote unquote, occupied the political middle. Now he got trounced. And I'm thinking now about today, but I want to go back to this because a lot of Republicans here are getting the vapors, are getting concerned that Trump is going too far with his Gestapo-like tactics. And I see it playing out. I've gotten some emails and I'm responding to them here as quickly as I can. But, you know, a lot of you out there, I'm just letting you know, you're concerned that Trump is going a little too far on this immigration thing. And I'm telling you that the number one thing that Trump is thinking about right now is the Florida miracle. Because DeSantis went from a barely there victory of 0.4% to a 19% landslide because of voter ID, limits on ballot drop boxes, cleaning up the voter rolls, and then, of course, a very high-profile push against illegal immigration. And he did it. He cleaned up the fundamentals, the basics of elections in Florida. And all of a sudden, voila, the Democrats' ascendancy, their growth, their whatever that were, conventional, again, people were saying at the time, look at Florida, look at Florida. I mean, it's going to be the next blue state. And at this point, because of the number of electoral votes that Florida has, there were people already predicting that another Republican president it would be impossible basically to elect another Republican to the White House just based on the number of electoral votes in states like California, New York, and then adding to it a solid lock in Florida. Now, DeSantis thwarted this, and I'm convinced that every person with a brain inside of the Trump administration, and there are many, are looking at the Florida miracle as an instructive example of what they can achieve in spite of opposition from California Democrats in California. And this is why, folks, I'm telling you, Trump is not going to give up on California. Remember, Trump campaigned there. He went there and he did it, and he got votes. It probably put him over the edge, I think, electorally, in the popular vote. And there's a play there, but I am certain that every person that Trump talks to, every Republican that Trump talks to from California, they tell him the same thing. There are people here in the state, in California, that that are common sense, that are reasonable. And you know, while there may be a large number of registered Democrats, there is a possibility in the state of California to begin turning things around and at least pick up congressional seats in places like Orange County and the Central Valley that are historically far more conservative, far more red than cities like LA.